Hey y'all, welcome to the first episode of my Sentro School series. Today we're going to be talking about Sentro anatomy, so basically we're just going to be going over all of the different parts on the Sentro and what they do. So here is my Sentro. It is fully assembled. When you first get your Sentro, you are going to have to assemble it yourself, but it's very easy. It will come with the body, and if I remember correctly, you are going to have to attach the handle, the tension guide, and the legs of your machine to the body. So first we can talk about the needles. My machine is a 48 needle machine. They are also sometimes called pins or pegs, but it's all the same thing, so don't get confused. And on my machine, I have one white needle and all the rest are pink, and this white needle is signaling the end of the row. This is the last needle of the row, needle number 48. It's a different color just to help signal when each row is ending, just to give you a little visual cue. It's very helpful like that, but it doesn't really affect anything. It's just a different color. This is the yarn guide, so if we go ahead and just cast on a few stitches. So you put this yarn through the yarn guide and it's just guiding the yarn so that the needles can pick up the yarn and knit it into stitches as you knit along. Here is a needle and you see it has this little hook here. So that hook is grabbing the yarn from the yarn guide. Then you see the needle has this little belly. So what that belly does is it's pushing the previous stitch from the previous row over these teeth. You see these sets of teeth all along here? What those teeth do is they hold that stitch in place so that the hook on the needle can bring the yarn from the yarn guide through the middle of that stitch and create a new stitch. And then all these ridges here just kind of help control the yarn and help make sure that your project doesn't come flying off the machine. This is the tension guide. So what the tension guide does is it helps guide the tension of your yarn. So it has these 3 holes, a small one, a medium one, and a large one. And you can put your yarn in these holes in any combination you want. So you could just put it through one of them, or you could put it through 2, or you could put it through all 3. It really is just up to your preference and the yarn that you're using. When you put it through all 3 holes, you're gonna get a tighter tension than if you were to just put it through one hole. And if you put it through this small hole, you're gonna get a tighter tension than if you were to put it through this larger one. I find they're most useful for dealing with different weights of yarn. So if I'm using a finer weight, I'm going to use the smaller hole or a combination of these 3 here. And if I'm using a heavier weight yarn like this, I will mostly put it in just the middle hole like this. This is what I tend to do most often. I typically use worsted weight yarn on my projects, and this is what I find works best for me. I also will often guide the tension a little bit just with my fingers and pulling on the yarn a little bit, but that just comes with practice, so you actually don't have to use this tension guide at all. You can just guide the tension with your hand, but I think using the tension guide is useful, especially for a beginner. This is the handle of your machine, and all it does is it moves your machine forward and backwards. Pretty simple. On the side of your machine, you'll see this switch here that switches your machine between the panel setting and the tube setting. So my machine is in the tube setting right now, and what that means is I'll be able to crank my machine all the way around without my machine stopping. So you see the white needle is coming up. This is the very end of our row. We're able to pass over that end of the row and keep going. And you see the row counter here, this is the row counter, went up 1 because we just knit 1 row. So we can do it again. And we made it all the way around again, and we can just keep continuing and continuing for however far we want. From what I've heard, it's pretty common for people's row counters to break on their Sentros. Unfortunately, that just comes with it being a fairly cheap machine, but you can always just count the rows in your head. You can count the rows in the project that you're making just by counting the actual rows in your project, or you could download stitch counting apps. I can link one that I use sometimes in the description, or you could also buy like a physical little counter, a little clicker, whatever works for you. My row counter has not broken yet, but it really might just be luck. So don't worry if yours does break. It's really not the end of the world, and there are a lot of ways that you can kind of get around that. So when you press this little button, it'll bring your count back to 0. Now we'll switch the machine into the panel setting, and you'll see that I can't turn my machine all the way around. It will get stuck at a certain point. So there, it got stuck at the second needle here. So it gets stuck at the end of the row, and then you have to just start turning the opposite direction. And there it gets stuck again. So that's how you create a panel, is your knit project won't be connected into a tube because the machine can't knit these few stitches here because the machine gets stuck. So it turns into a panel rather than a tube. So again, with the row counter, even if your row counter does break, it's really fine because in the panel setting, it won't even work anyways. So you'll probably want some alternative methods for counting your rows when you're making panels anyways. So it's really not that big of a deal if it does break. So that is it for today. I hope that y'all found this helpful. Please leave any questions you have in the comments below, and I will do my best to address them in a future video. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give it a like, and if you enjoy Sentro content, then don't forget to subscribe. This is just the first in my series of Sentro how-tos where I am going more in depth on anything and everything related to the Sentro, so keep an eye out for more. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!